Good morning. Did everybody get a chance to pick up the handouts on the way in? If not, there's extra out there. You can take some more if you need to. Share them with anybody on your way out. I want to welcome everyone this morning. Tabitha the Circle is hosting this program on how to be a dementia-friendly community. What is a dementia-friendly community? It is a community that shows a high level of public awareness and understanding of dementia, in which it is possible for people with dementia to live a good life, enabled to live as independently as possible and to continue to be part of their community. Most importantly, it is a community where they are met with understanding and given support where necessary. It is my pleasure today to introduce our speaker, someone who's very special to me, my niece, Becky Clement. Becky has learned a lot about dementia in order to care for and be an advocate for her husband, Jeremiah, during his struggle with frontal temporal dementia. Jeremiah was in his early 40s, and Becky is here today to share what she's learned and to enable us to be a dementia-friendly community.
Good morning. It's a pleasure to be here today. This is obviously something I'm very passionate about, and I'm so grateful that every one of you took the time to spend with us this morning. This speaks to who you are as a person and how inclusive you want to be to embrace all the members in our community. So just a little bit of kind of the path we'll take today includes this. Just a quick introduction. I'm going to introduce myself, a little bit why this is so important to me. We're also going to do a little bit of defining of dementia, so how we can prepare to support individuals with dementia. We're also going to learn about dementia, some of the facts and figures, and how it's impacting not just the United States, but the world, and then right here in Wisconsin. And then we're also going to learn how we can respond, either as members of faith and/or business members. At the end, there'll be time for some questions, whether that's something we do out loud or you see me after. I'm perfectly okay with that. So this is why I'm passionate. This is my family there and my husband. My husband was diagnosed with dementia at 42 years old, something we never expected, no family history. It was sporadic. That's what we were told by the neurologist. It wasn't an easy diagnosis to get to. Because who heard of a young person having dementia? How is that possible with no family history? So when we got the diagnosis, I received a slip of paper from a neurologist stating the diagnosis, no resources, nothing else that I could tap into. He, being young of age that he was, I quickly found there was not much the state of Wisconsin could offer me because he was in the bracket that was under 65. So I figured I needed to figure this out. I had to still run a household now as a single person in the working force. We were a dual income, single income household immediately overnight. Still raising children. I mean, yes, they're young adults and teens, but they still were in school. And then, how was I going to survive? Losing my life partner through something so unexpected. That's when I reached out to the Aging Disability Resource Center of Wisconsin, and particularly the Milwaukee chapter. They're the ones that would typically do this presentation. They were not able to do it today. However, they know me and they know what an advocate I am, and they said, you have this, go for it and do it. We'll give you our notes. I took the notes, made it mine. Because this is a Wisconsin initiative. And so there's a very scripted kind of guide in which this presentation is given. You guys get the pleasure, maybe, of having a little bit of a personal spin rather than having the experts speak about it, but it may not have been impacted by it. You kind of get the best of both worlds with me, I hope. I have researched blogs, took courses, read books, joined support groups, and all of that is poured into this presentation. I tried to keep it concise, but let me know if it gets too wordy. will not offend me. So this is important because we want to make sure that people with dementia know that they are important and they don't have to live in the shadows. Neither do their caregivers. Their caregivers are there 24/7 for them. Very hard to get out in the community when you have an individual with dementia because their behaviors are so unexpected. And it's a little bit, if people don't understand because they don't look sick, it can be hard to get out. I mean, imagine you're having a person with you that might be tantruming like a toddler. That's not very well accepted in the society, but it needs to be because it's showing that dementia is growing at alarming rates. So, besides being a mother and a dementia caregiver, if you couldn't see, I think my outfit screams it, I'm a school teacher. So we're gonna do a little bit of interaction here. If you're a brave soul, we're gonna play the game. Some of you may have seen this online. Put a finger up if, okay? You can choose put up high if you feel confident. I'll do that with you, or on your knee, that's fine. But this is what we're going to do. So put a finger up if you ever forgot to pay a bill and you get that past due notice in the mail and you're like, oh no, what did I do here? Okay. Put a finger up if you walk in a room and you forget where you put something or why you're even there. Yep. Put a finger up. Okay, this is a real life example. I bought a package of cookies. I brought them in the house. I knew I had those cookies. I blame my kids for stealing them. They're like, Mom, we don't have your cookies. We know better. Okay. Well, then I found them in the cabinet. I was like, oh, I did put those there. Guilty. Put a finger up if you're talking and midway through, you forgot the next sentence. Okay. Put a finger up if you wrote a letter, it's beautiful, it's great. You go back and reread and you misspelled a word. And that's like, oh my gosh, I've known that word my whole life. How are you guys feeling? Oh, you're running out of fingers? Guess what though? You're normal. Don't worry about it. That's a normal part of aging and getting older. Everybody does this, from very little to very senior. You're fine. It's when this becomes something that happens in your day-to-day functioning in which you cannot work. So sometimes this is seen. It's severe enough that impacts, and it's not seen all at once. It can come on gradually. In my husband's case, that's what happened. We saw some odd things just a couple of times a month, and then some odd things began a couple of times a week, and then those odd things began again to daily, and it started impacting his life because it wasn't the memory that went. He had pretty good memory, especially long-term memory. I did notice some short-term concerns, especially when traveling to new places. He got a little bit lost. He also lost his words, and that's very common with word finding. Absolutely, thank you. Oop. Let me turn it off so we're not getting all that static. Is that better? Okay, great. I heard a little bit of that static too. We don't want that. So, word finding becomes another issue, as well as the ability to write. Some people may have written beautiful long sentences, and suddenly their words become shorter. They may even get lost going to familiar places. They're also quick to anger, and that may not be something that was the norm for your person. And they become somebody that you're not sure what happened. It's like somebody else has taken over their body. And that's a big impact. If you know this is not your person and you know in your heart that there's something wrong, trust your gut because it's more often correct. There's things they can do to kind of mask this. And if you don't know the person, you'll think that's the norm. Another big thing is they will have trouble recalling steps to take in order to get ready to go somewhere. So if we're getting ready for church in the morning, we know, okay, I gotta get up, I have to shower, I have to get dressed, get my wallet, keys, and go. Well, they might do some of those steps. They might shower, jump out of the shower, keep their bathrobe on, get their keys and go. And those are often to the extreme where we see that happening, and we hear more about that, and that's kind of a big flag there. We know something is wrong. So dementia is defined under this dementia umbrella. There's so many different kinds of dementia, and the type of dementia you have depends on what's happening in the brain. So I'm going to use my hand as a visual here. This is the brain, this is the front of the brain, this is the brainstem. Dementia can impact different parts. There's types of dementia where it's a buildup of proteins that causes the impairment. There's dementia that shrinks parts of the brain. There's vascular, where there's something wrong with the blood vessels in the brain. So the first one we know of is Alzheimer's disease. That's the big one. That's the one that's more prevalent. About 60% of the population struggles with Alzheimer's disease. Then there's vascular dementia. This can come on due to a stroke. It can come on through broken blood vessels in the brain that might be bleeding. It can also come on more prevalent with alcohol use and the vascular dementia. Frontotemporal dementia is very rare. This is the dementia that my loved one had. And that one we see where the brain shrinks. It often impacts language first, as we saw, because your language receptors are right here in the front of your brain. About 5% of the population has that. We know that Bruce Willis has that. Thinking of people that have that, more and more celebrities are coming out about this. Bruce Willis's wife is a great advocate for individuals with dementia. I have joined her support groups. She does have a book coming out. It's for pre-sale on Amazon. It's called The Unexpected Journey. I highly recommend it to caregivers. We also know that Wendy Williams, famous talk show host, was told that she has frontotemporal dementia. Hers was exacerbated due to some alcohol abuse, which is why, since she's quit, they're seeing that she's getting better, but it's just because that part of the equation, that alcohol use, is out. Then we have Lewy body dementia. This dementia is very sneaky and very scary. It gives you hallucinations, delusions, does a lot to your body. This is, in fact, the dementia that Robin Williams was diagnosed with. The sad thing was, he thought he was just going crazy. It wasn't until his autopsy that they saw that he had this kind of dementia. There's other dementias that come on with Parkinson's disease. There's ALS, sports injuries, Huntington's disease. Those are different types of dementias. Some of that is more genetics are at play. And then we get an overlap of dementias where people can fall under a couple parts of this umbrella. So how do we know if somebody has dementia? Just looking at this picture, can you pinpoint the individual who has dementia? I'm seeing some head shaking, like, no, we can't. The thing is, there's no obvious signs, physical signs of someone living with dementia. If we see someone with a cane, yes, we know they might have trouble walking, or dark glasses in a cane, visual impairment, using a wheelchair. With dementia, we don't see that. In fact, younger people get dementia too. The frontotemporal dementia, of course, I know a lot about that. Some individuals get that as early as in their 20s. Also, kids get dementia, and it's called Sanfilippo syndrome in kids. Anyone is at risk of dementia. So what can we do? How do we know if somebody has dementia? Well, we might see some of the common symptoms, but we might not. We might see it in somebody's actions, but we're unsure. This is where we need to kind of educate ourselves as a community to learn what to look for. An individual caring for a person with dementia might tell you, but they also might not, because of the stigma. The stigma is scary. You don't want to be identified as a person with this disease. An individual might casually joke, yes, my brain is broken sometimes, or I forget things sometimes. But again, they might not say anything. So there's some clues we can look for. Out in public, I used pins, like pictured on the top, and I have one here, that kind of signal, just in a gentle way, especially early on when my husband was in early stages, because he was convinced he was fine. But it kind of signaled to people when we were having interactions like, hey, there's something going on with my partner. A person with dementia might wear a card. Often there's a flower on it. It's a forget-me-not. That's kind of a symbol. Or an elephant is another symbol. It might be a purple ribbon. There's caregivers cards you can hand out. I've done that, where I slipped it to somebody after he gently nudged or tapped somebody, and people spun around. And I'm like, oh, he just really liked your shirt. I'm sorry. Here's a card. Sorry about that. The airport, when you're traveling, gives something for invisible disabilities, and dementia does fall under that umbrella. And it's that sunflower lanyard, it's green, and it has a little ID. Just kind of know that this person might need some extra help. So as a community, we need to become better about looking for these 10 signs. So the first sign is memory loss that disrupts daily life. It's chronic, they simply can't function. Number 2 is challenges in problem solving and planning. So simply putting together a grocery list could be very hard for that person. Number 3 is difficulty completing familiar tasks, whether at home or at leisure or at work. So if somebody was an avid bowler and they had great bowling scores, or an avid golfer and suddenly their scores are declining, or they can't identify their driver from their putter and so forth, that might be a clue something's going on. 4, their confusion with time and place. So this happens a lot, where in the early stages especially, where a person is doing okay through the day, about 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock hits, and something called sundowners happens. The person becomes very confused, doesn't know what to do. This is the time where you might have somebody say a little later down the road in the dementia journey, I need to go home, I need to go to sleep, but they are home. Definitely if I had that happen, in some ways to combat it is like, hey, come help me with the dishes, I need some help with the dishes, kind of shift that attention. Other caregivers I know has gone so far as packing their loved one in the car, going around the block, returning home, we're home, and then tuck that person right into bed, because their body is telling you at that point, I'm tired, I need to rest, I'm done, I can't make sense of my world right now. Number 5, they have trouble understanding visual images and spatial relationships. So this is as like a church, excuse me, we're pretty good here, but I've seen churches where the carpet matches the pews, and I'm like, that's beautiful, but somebody's gonna end up sitting on the floor, because visually you can't make sense of that. We have nice edging here that kind of distinguish the steps, but if we didn't have that wooden edging, this floor would just kind of run together, and that would be a trip hazard. So, visual awareness does go in part of dementia. I saw it with my husband. He lost his peripheral vision. Scary thing was he was still driving. Thank goodness I was in the car with him, because those safety alerts that go, hey, you got out of the lane and there's somebody next to you, completely ignored it. And so I'm grabbing the wheel and I'm like, oh, we are all done with this. And that's where you have to be very careful with driving. In Wisconsin, they cannot take away somebody's license who has dementia. Sadly, it does fall on the care partners and caregivers. And it's a hard thing to do. I do have tips if you need them, because they can't discriminate based on disability is what is said. But let me tell you, if they get in an accident, your insurance will have no problem with saying, hey, you knew about it, you didn't take care of it, we're taking you to court and taking everything you own. So that's something to be aware of as their vision changes. They may seem cognitively aware, but it's that vision piece that can be sneaky. Number 6, they have new problems with words in speaking or writing. Like I said, their messages may shrink down to you. They may grab text like my loved one did from a word bank that he had preset in his phone. I was like, which was kind of genius, that I found later on, where he grabbed phrases that kind of fit appropriately in the situation, and that's where it got difficult, because your mind's playing games with you then. Well, he responded appropriately. He also did it on a hidden document at his work to respond to certain emails that was found later. So we got to be very careful with that and look for those things. So if your person is not sounding like your person, using language they usually use, that's another red flag. Number 7, misplacing things. Okay, we've all misplaced things, but actually I just misplaced my water bottle earlier. But then it's losing the steps to retrace and find that thing. So, for example, I knew I set it down on that side of the room, and I was like, oh, let me go back. I was over talking to Devin, and then I went to the pew. Oh, there it is. It's when that ability to lose it, it's lost because you can't simply retrace your steps. That's when you should be worried. Number 8 is decreased or poor judgment, and this is kind of the most difficult in social situations, because those social norms we have, individual with dementia might not have. They may invade personal space. They may push past other people because they see something they're fixated on and they just push past. They may guard's safety rules because they're so set on getting where they need to be. Their mind becomes linear. It's all about, I want this, I need this, I need to get this. And kind of those social norms drift away. Out in the grocery store, for example, they may see someone with a colorful shirt or even colorful hair. They want to touch it. We know that it looks unique to us, but we're not going to touch it because we've been taught that. Our brains tell us like, oh, that's not acceptable. That safeguard is stripped away and they may touch somebody else, and that's where, apologies come in. But if you see that, that's a sign. And then number 9 is they withdraw from work or social activities, especially activities they once enjoyed. They kind of retreat into themselves. They may not want to leave the home. If people are over, they may kind of stay focused on a phone or a book. Those are kind of red flags there. And then number 10, again, the changes in mood and personality. It's pretty extreme. That's where you're thinking, what happened to my loved one? Are they angry with me? Do they still care about me? Where is their empathy? All those things may go away. So as you know, these 10 signs, these are the most important. If you see quite a few of those, that's kind of flags to you that maybe I should intervene. So risk factors for dementia. There's some things we can control, and there's definitely some things that are out of control with dementia. Research says 45% could have avoided the journey if they took better care of themselves. So the modifiable risk factors include taking care of high blood pressure, taking care of high cholesterol, not smoking, managing your diabetes if you have diabetes, obesity, that lack of physical exercise, reducing alcohol consumption, continuing to stay engaged. And this is like cognitive engagement. We hear, if you don't use your brain, you're going to lose your brain. That is very true. And this often happens because people choose to isolate themselves due to the stigma. And that's why as community members, we want to keep drawing them in and drawing them closer to us. In addition to that, if they become lonely and depressed, their mortality rate increases quite more rapidly. So we want to make sure that they're engaged. Individuals that with college degrees have higher cognitive levels, this is per studies, and they're able to hide and master dementia usually a little bit longer, even in front of doctors, and that's where it can get tricky because that causes delayed diagnosis. If you're not satisfied as a care partner, keep pursuing it. Again, my biggest tip is like write everything out. Write the changes out that you've seen over the weeks and the months and give that to the provider. Again, our individuals with dementia can do what's called show timing and put on an act for short durations of time. And unfortunately, it causes delayed diagnosis, which means, in turn, delayed resources or access to resources for families impacted by dementia. The isolation and loneliness can be as bad as smoking half a pack of cigarettes a day. So it's important that we embrace and connect and give longevity to those individuals in the community impacted by dementia. We're simply not meant to be alone. Traumatic brain injury does increase the risk of dementia. That's something that my husband's neurologist kept insisting on because she was having a hard time understanding how spontaneous it was. Oh, it's because he played football in high school. I'm like, no. It's because he played soccer. He was a boxer. I said, no athletic ability at all. And they're like, oh, well, it's because he was in multiple car accidents. I was like, just one. And she's just like, are you sure? Are you sure? I was like, I've been with this man since I was 14 years old. I'm 100% sure. And they're like, oh, okay. Was he in the military was another one. Now we know that individuals in the military, I have quite a few individuals I know through support groups online, greatly impacted by getting dementia later in life, thinking about how their heads are bouncing around in vehicles that are not stable to support their heads. Again, that's shaking up the brain. Also, exposure to different chemical agents. So dementia is higher with military individuals who are in the military. This one is another one we can help. If we have vision loss, making sure that we correct that vision loss with glasses, contacts, whatever we need to do. Because when you're not reading or able to look at information, again, that part of your brain is starting to shrink down. If you have hearing loss, I'm guilty of this, the stigma of not wearing the hearing aids, you definitely should do that. This is something I've learned. because if you can't hear well, you do pull back and disengage. These things are in our control. Out of our control are things like this: age, blessing and a curse, right? We're all living longer. There's medical advances. That's great, but advancing age also increases our risk of dementia. We can't control it. Gender, females are more often to get dementia than males, almost double. They're also the ones who are to be care partners for other females with dementia, whether it's mothers, aunts, nieces, they're all care partners. There's certain genetic conditions like Huntington's disease, which is a type of dementia that is seen in families. There is air pollution on here. Now, that's just a little bit in our control. We can modify that by moving or using air purifiers. The other thing that's not listed is people of color are more likely to get dementia, and mostly it's due to little access to resources and medical care. So that factor is probably also being underdiagnosed and underreported. So this part, I'm going to step away and take a little bit of a drink. I want you, one or two audience members, what sticks out for you here? And if you can't see it, let me know and I can kind of speak to it. But if you're brave enough to just raise a hand or let me know what sticks out to you. Brave enough to share? 1 in 9 people. So 1 in 9 people, Americans age 65 and older, have Alzheimer's. I'll go a little more into detail there. 1 in 3 seniors dies with Alzheimer's or another dementia. This is a life-limiting disease. In 2022, dementia was the 7th leading cause of death among U.S. adults and the 6th leading cause of death among adults 65 or older. The cost of care for people with Alzheimer's is projected to reach $360 billion in 2024. That is a great increase from even 2013. One more statistic that sticks out, anyone? I can call one out here too. So Black Americans are 2 times as likely to have Alzheimer's or other dementia as white people. There's another statistic. Here's some more statistics here. I don't know how we can see the slide, but if you see a fact that kind of resonate with you, shout it out. Anyone see one? Yes, Pat. Yes, I love that you said that. Yes, 11 billion American caregivers are providing free care. Billions of Americans are caring for loved ones impacted by dementia. A Stanford University study actually said that caregivers have a 63% higher mortality rate than non-caregivers. And 40% of Alzheimer's caregivers die from stress-related disorders before the person they're caring for. When I was in it for the 2 years that I was caring for my husband, I thought I would be on that scale because the stress was so great. Trying to keep all the balls afloat as I'm juggling being a wife, being a caregiver, being a parent, working full time, and then some, and becoming a dementia advocate. I had to. It became my study and my focus. To be honest, I was in school for 2 master's degrees at one time, starting a 3rd master's degree. That was nothing. That work was nothing compared to taking care of my loved one with dementia and being the advocate for him. But he deserved that. Everybody with dementia deserves to live a dignified life and the best life they can. And it's up to caregivers that are unpaid to be up to that challenge. Often caregivers are told and remarked later on down the road that for their bravery, and it's commended. But myself as a caregiver, it was one of the most rewarding experiences I've ever had. And it was a privilege to do so and be there for him. So here are some Wisconsin facts and figures. So in 2020, estimates show about 120,000 people are living with dementia in Wisconsin. But in the next 20 to 30 years, that rate is almost going to double and then some. 70% of individuals with dementia live in the community, and that number is growing. Why? Because there's not enough facilities, care homes, caregivers to care for these individuals. The system is overtaxed. It's just doubling at increasing rate, but yet these are fields that are often underappreciated, and therefore a lot of people don't stay in the workforce. Lots of turnover. I know on average, it also takes 3.5 years to get a diagnosis. And in that time, just seeing the same doctor over and over to get a clear diagnosis, those doctors also have a higher turnover rate. In fact, it took us, and it was quick, I did an expedited plan, 6 months to see the doctor for the first time to get a diagnosis, and then we had to wait another 8 months again to get a secondary diagnosis. It takes time, and therefore a lot of it, the caregiving and medical needs are falling on caregivers in the community, whether it's family, friends, neighbors, youth, there's teens and young adults, and children even, who are caring for loved ones with dementia. So impact on the brain. The thing we have to remember that the person is never doing anything on purpose to make your life miserable. The person in front of you who may be visiting your establishment, they're struggling. It's not on purpose. Their brain is not working the way it should. It's up to us to kind of know if they need help. There's some signs. If they appear to be searching for something, maybe they're trying to figure out how to get to the counter to pay for something, or they want something but they're not able to verbalize it. They might be pulling out a purse or a wallet, so that's kind of a clue that they're there to purchase something, or they want to put money in the offering plate. They just might not be the right time. They may be slow to recall the steps, and therefore we kind of have to assist them following steps. Okay, first we're going to do this, then we're going to do this, kind of be a model for that. If we have the resources to help them, we can help them. We're going to talk about those resources in the next couple slides. If they repeat themselves, that's okay. Just nod and smile and say, yes, I understand. And then socially, they might appear off. That's when you see people like invading personal space or maybe just looking a little bit lost. So here we go, the nitty-gritty of it all. Now we're going to be prepared to respond. We prepared, we learned, now how do we respond? So we're going to skip here. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this because there should have been, there was a flyer that everybody picked up. And we're going to talk about ways going to responding with a dementia-friendly approach. There's numbers 1 through 10. And there's some statements there that will help fit in on how to manage this. So for the first one, if somebody with dementia is arguing with you, do you think you're ever going to win that battle? No, you can't. You can't. It's not their reality. If they're insisting it is their birthday, just wish them happy birthday. It will be easier for everybody, and they just want to be acknowledged and loved. That's all that it is. Just agree with them. Divert, never reason. So sometimes the best way I diverted my loved one from getting impatient as I'm trying to pay, I handed him a mint from my purse, or I said, oh, can you help me put the receipt back in my wallet? Something that, a task to help with. Distract is one that I had to do early on. And he had if an individual with dementia has a bathroom accident, it's very embarrassing, it still can be. Just change the focus. Don't make it about what they did. Just say, hey, why don't you come to the bathroom with me? I just redecorated, let me know your opinion. As a business or a church, you can say, oh, come to the bathroom, give me some tips on what I can do, and help their caregiver, if possible, help clean that person up. Reassure, never lecture. Often there's a lot of worry, when are we going home? When are we going home? Reassure, we'll go home right after we do this. Think about how, if you're a parent or an aunt or an uncle, how you used to speak to younger children and just offer reassurance. That's kind of the way you want to approach it. Reminisce, never say remember. Okay, that's a little hard because I always say that. Oh, remember when we did this, or remember that. So I've learned to shift it up and say, oh, do you recall the time we went to the park and we had ice cream afterwards? And oh, it was such a fun day. Recalling those happy moments for them will also lighten the mood and change things for them. And then repeat, well, I told you to do this. Just repeat it. Just say, hey, we're going to church in the morning. Make sure you're ready to go. And if they ask you again, what do we do in the morning? We're going to church. We'll be there. Don't worry, we'll go. Let them do what they can. Never say they can't do it. An example for this is my husband always made the coffee every morning since the beginning of our marriage. Towards the end, he was overfilling the coffee decanter where it was spilling out onto the counter as he's pouring it in. So what I did was I took a magic marker and Sharpie marker, and I did like 5-cup line, marked it. We're going to fill it only to the line, okay? And he did it a couple of times. He was able to keep that independence for quite a while. And then we can ask but never demand. So if you're getting anxious and you're feeling like it's time that we shift gears with something, say, hey, how about we do this? Or let's do this now. Kind of change your language. There's more tips on that sheet about that. So just kind of look at that as a tip sheet. Again, these situations will come up. You may not know how to respond perfectly the first time. That is okay. It will take practice and time. These tips on the sheet will help you. And then how do we approach someone living with this dementia? Just like we do everybody else. We smile, we're calm, we think positively. We think of them as a whole person. We don't think, oh, well, that person's confused. I can't approach them. Well, in reality, it's not that person that's confused. We're the ones confused. They know what they want. They know what they need. They just can't explain it to us. So we have to make sure we're there to help them. Make good eye contact. Make sure you're approaching the front of the person because, as I mentioned before, vision is kind of those first things to go. So if we're approaching from the side, you might startle somebody, and that might trigger an undesired response. And then introduce yourself. Just offering that hand is a common social norm that sticks with people throughout transitions in life, so that's a good thing to do. And then say their name if you know it. That builds that connection if you know that person's name. Speak slowly and clearly. There's no need to raise your voice unless you know that person has a hearing impairment. If their hearing is good, just speak at a normal tone. Raising your voice can sometimes create an undesired response as well. And then just allow that person to take time to respond and be patient. How we can best help respond as a community, again, it's all about that mindset change. They belong in the community. They belong to be an active part of it. They're not confused. We're confused. We need to support them. This one I keep thinking like the Oprah Winfrey, you get a car, you get a car, you get a car. Name tags for everybody. You get a name tag, you get a name tag, you get a name tag. Because not only does this help that person remember who you are, it's also a clue if you're out in the business world. If a person's wearing a name tag, that is a person I can go to for help. So that's another clue. Use simple symbols to identify your business. So for a church, we might have on a door a symbol of a cross. For a restaurant, a food place. As language slips away and the ability to read, those visual symbols are helpful. I think of an example at Freighted neurological clinics in the parking garages. They have 3 different levels. One is a symbol of a heart, there's a butterfly, there's an umbrella. So we just pull that little paper tag and I would hand it to my loved one and say, okay, when we leave, help us find the floor. It's marked next to the buttons where the numbers are. Again, numbers can wean away too. But he was able to identify those symbols. Press the floor, opens up, we see the sign in front of us with the butterfly. We knew we were on the right level. It got us in the right direction. And then if you have a regular routine and structure, that's very helpful. For example, offering visual menus or other visual needs guides. I bought one off of Amazon that I used and took with us, one of many. There's also apps on your phone where you can kind of show, like what the person can indicate what they need and or want.
Becky, that was so helpful when the nurse came.
Oh, Yes, Aunt Bonnie here was a caregiver for my husband, and this is the way the hospice team could speak with my husband in nonverbal ways, and he could indicate if he was feeling pain or anything. I also had visual cards, and there's a Padlet at the end, which has a whole ton of resources if this is impacting you, or definitely see me later on that. And then just reducing distractions. I think of Walmart. They have sensory-friendly hours on Saturdays where the lights are down low. The employees are speaking in low tones. There's no music. There's very little movement. It was a nice, calm environment where we can get in and out quickly. Here, taking a look at our environment, there is like a spot for seating over here. If somebody needs to take a break, there's room to pace in the back, but yet still be involved. So kind of want to consider those needs. And then how continue to respond as a community, just making sure our signage is clear. That's one of the main things, like we see the bathroom sign. Pairing anything with pictures is extremely helpful. Making sure things are well lit, but also being mindful of reflections. Thankfully back here we see glass, but it's got like the wooden trim that kind of breaks it up. That might confuse somebody. They might think, oh, that's a door I need to step through, and they might walk into it. So putting pictures up to cover some of the reflective surfaces is key. And then making sure the environment is comfortable as far as like temperature. Individuals with dementia can often lose their body's ability to regulate temperature, and therefore we have to make sure they're comfortable either through modifying the temperature or having sweatshirts for them or sweaters. I already talked about the ability to walk. Using information and notice boards, we see there's some color-coded boards, might indicate like different groups. It might, within the church, like red, it might be the men's group, yellow might be the women's group, so they can kind of look at it right away and know, okay, this is the flyer that I need. And then the evacuation symbol, nice and clear. Often we see evacuation symbols with diagrams and maps. That's confusion for somebody when you're trying to get out of a building quickly. You see flames, you see a person running, and you see the door. That's pretty clear cut. And then we have visuals, thumbs up, thumbs down, so a person can indicate what they want. Again, speaking to menus and or other ways to communicate. And then we talk a little bit here, access to a family bathroom. That is key. That's something there's not enough of. And if your business or establishment doesn't have a family bathroom, help the person out by saying, I'll go in and check that the bathroom is clear. I'll allow you and your individual with dementia to go in so you can provide those caregiving needs. That's just a simple way to help take care of that. Visual pitfalls, this woman in this dress that matches the chair, gonna be very honest with you, someone with dementia might think that's a comfortable seat. And that's kind of what we want to do when we're thinking about looking at our space for individuals with dementia. Let's make sure that there's like smooth, varying coloring transitions, something that I didn't think about till much later. Bathroom. The floor is white, the toilet's white, the toilet seat is white. How do we know where to go? It's recommended that you kind of highlight that toilet seat by using maybe a black toilet seat instead, because that kind of gives like a target there. Most tactful way I can put that. Other ways to help as a dementia-friendly community, ways we can respond. Honestly, this is a list I developed myself. It's kind of above and beyond because, that's how I am. So for businesses and our churches, we can host support groups. We can do make it, take it options. I wanted to go out and do activities in the public. It was just very hard for my person with dementia to be out for very long. I think of Home Depot, went to them like, hey, we'd love to build a birdhouse, just can't stay. Can I have a kit to take home? Oh, absolutely. There's also these dine-in deals where you get a deal if you dine in. Well, that wasn't happening because that was just too long of a wait. Can I still get the dine-in option, but please allow me to take it to go? Most people were very understanding. We had a favorite little coffee shop that we loved to visit, and I did clue them in early on that my loved one struggles with dementia, and this is his order. And as caregivers went there, they got to know him, and they knew exactly what they wanted because he had been there so often. So cluing them in helps. Hosting dementia-friendly events, such as what we just did here, in kind of a way. Having sensory-friendly hours, as I spoke to earlier. Donating a meal or service can just mean the world to somebody struggling with dementia and the stigma of kind of being in the background, often in the community. And it's, I didn't feel this too much, thankfully, a strong support system. But we hear if somebody gets cancer, casseroles, dementia, individuals often feel they get distance from people. And that's not just the person with dementia themselves, but their caregivers. And then coming together as a business or a community, create fidget blankets or even memory kits. So if you're a hobby store and the person is into cars, Maybe you're clearancing out some cars. Put together a little car model kit, like little stop signs and roads, something that can bring that person back to times that they remember in their life. And our caregiver kits are even nice, just a nice little gesture that putting together things that might be clearancing out, like socks, candles, soap, just something like, hey, I hear you, I understand you're going through a hard time. Here's some self-care options. And acknowledge those caregivers, especially during Caregiver Awareness Month. Family Caregiver Awareness Appreciation Month is in the month of November. I do want just to remind people that caregivers can be anyone, again, as young as children, as young as teens. My son was number 2 caregiver in our household. It was me and him. He started caregiving for dad at the age of 15. He still had to go to school, live his life, do all the things. But he made sacrifices, and that was acknowledged in our journey. I tried to trade it off like, okay, you stayed home with dad, why I can work these extra 2 hours, you go out and have 2 hours, just kind of trading that time off. But as the caregiver crisis increases, this is going to be more and more prevalent. There's actually, I'm going to skip ahead just slightly for that because I'm on that soapbox. There's a film coming out by Bradley Cooper on PBS on June 24th. It talks about this caregiver crisis. There's an interview with I believe he's 10 years old, that's caregiving for a parent. My son and I were interviewed for this movie. We gave a lot of input. At one time, they're going to come out and film us. By the time we got connected, it was too late in the film for this to occur. But we did offer a lot of impact and explained our personal journey. My son went on pages and pages of tangents about his caregiving experience. There is support for young adults called Lorenzo's House for youth, and that's something that we can always turn to for supports for youth. And then be aware, recognize Dementia Brain Awareness Month. Guess what? That's this month right now. We just did that. It's the month of June. We're recognizing Dementia Awareness Month here. Walk is Alzheimer's Walk. Walk as a church, walk as a business, walk as a family. That's on Sunday, September 14th. And then reasons to respond. I'm not going to read all that, but think about the person with dementia. It's not what they expected in their life. It's not what they wanted. We still need to show up for them. They deserve the compassion, the dignity, and to know that they matter, and matter every day. For as long as they are here on earth, they matter, and then some. Keep them involved. It's something you can do that's so simple, and it just means the world to everybody. And the caregivers, they want the support. The job is 24/7. There are no breaks. The workload is great. The sleep is little. But there's little minimal resources for respite, so help out there when you can. Again, I'm appreciative. I had family that helped me out, and it made a difference. They need community. If we look at the definition of community, it's just basically a feeling of fellowship with others. Let's make sure that's something we do, offer community to everyone, whether they have dementia, invisible disabilities, it doesn't matter. And I know that's one of our core beliefs here, speaking to primarily our United Methodist congregation about the social justice and equality. I have lots of resources. There's a course online. You can take that. It's a 20-minute course. You do get a certificate. It's free. You can put that up at your establishment. There's also dementia-friendly videos that gives you tips on how to support people with dementia. I have a Padlet link that also talks to Teepa Snow, who's a great dementia advocate and helps problem solve some of those behaviors, as well as Be Light's caregiving. And then there's a whole guide for different aspects of dementia-friendly communities. I primarily spoke in general. I do have another presentation just geared towards faith communities. So if you're interested in that, let me know, or we can do that at a committee meeting. And then alternate resources, again, I put a nod to the Wisconsin Aging and Disability Resource Center. That was my go-to. Alzheimer's Association and the Wisconsin Dementia Care System, where they're becoming a dementia-capable Wisconsin. Tons of resources there. And then thank you for coming today. If you have any questions, please email me, come talk to me. There's a Padlet link there. I have you can either scan it. I don't know if Devin, there's like a little hidden Easter egg, I call it, in gray with the Padlet link right above that QR code. If you want to, I don't know if you're able to click that and just bring it up a little bit. So, Look at that, yes. That's about as fancy as I get with tech. But this is my Padlet resources. I have a blog where I explain my journey, just other different tips and things for caregivers. The first column, all of the slides that you may want to review for this presentation are there. Thank you again so much for your time. It was a pleasure to be here today, something I'm passionate about, and I'm grateful I had the opportunity to share with you.
For coming, and if you want to talk to her individually, she's available. She also has her information on the handouts, and this is being recorded, so you'll be able to go back and look at it online. Thank you.